Also, would you guys look at this cute little denim set for Ozzy? In case you guys want to see him in it. Is that not so cute? Yeah, it's a standard dove column. Big dove!
What happens when a team's entire identity, the very heart that powers its newfound success, is ripped away right before it's set to face a modern-day dynasty, when their superstar, the generational talent who single-handedly transformed their franchise from an afterthought into a global phenomenon, is forced to watch helplessly from the sidelines, dressed in street clothes? For the Indiana Fever, this wasn't some distant hypothetical. It was a cold, brutal, and immediate nightmare. They were about to step onto their home court to face the two-time defending champion Las Vegas Aces, an unstoppable juggernaut they hadn't managed to defeat in 5 long, painful years, and they had to do it without Caitlin Clark. The world didn't just expect a loss, it expected a public slaughter, a humbling reminder of their place in the league's hierarchy. But what unfolded that night in Gainbridge Fieldhouse wasn't a slaughter, it was a statement, a shocking, defiant performance that proved the Indiana Fever are far more dangerous and far more complete than anyone ever dared to realize.
We talked about, we just made sure that our energy was high, made sure that we were focused, because obviously we know Vegas is a great team and their team full of winners. And so for us, it's making sure that we turn the page off of a great Commissioner's Cup success, and then we have to be ready for Vegas, and we were.
McDonald back on the attack, lays it in. Nice. Mitchell, beautiful pass, 2 more for Boston. Oh, catch and shoot, connects. Here's Mitchell left wide open, and Mitchell cashes in with a 3. McDonald turns the corner and gets to the rim.
The team was trapped in a perfect storm of absolute disaster, a convergence of problems that would have broken a lesser squad. The news of Caitlin Clark's groin injury sent a shockwave through the fan base and the organization. Clark wasn't just their leading scorer or their assists leader, she was the architect of their entire renaissance. Her lightning-fast pace, her otherworldly court vision, and the gravitational pull her deep 3 threat exerted on every defense had completely redefined the Fever's DNA. They had become a fast-paced, high-octane team that was exhilarating to watch. Her presence on the court was a symbol of hope, a promise of a brighter future. Seeing her on the bench, unable to contribute, felt like watching that hope flicker out. The very engine of their identity was gone, replaced by a slow, sluggish, and disjointed style of play that looked utterly lost in the games without her. But the chaos didn't stop there. As if losing their superstar wasn't enough, the team was blindsided by the sudden departure of veteran DeWanna Bonner. Right when they needed a steady, experienced voice in the locker room to navigate the storm, Bonner decided to quit, abandoning her teammates just as they were preparing for the toughest stretch of their season. It was a stunning blow to morale and a catastrophic loss of depth. To make matters even worse, key frontcourt player Damiris Dantas was away on the other side of the world, representing her home country in international competition. The Fever weren't just thin, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel for available bodies, a skeleton crew preparing to face a fully armed Titan.
No updates outside of she's out tonight, so just continuing to work and get her progress and make sure there's no setbacks.
With the start-stop nature of you guys this season to this point, having 5 in a row at home right here, what kind of opportunity do you view that as for the rest of your year?
I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for us. Sleep in your own beds for a while, play some games at home, in our home arena with this crowd. It is a great opportunity, but you also can't take the opportunity that you're playing at home for granted, right? We still got to come with that energy, that effort, that high attention to detail, intentional focus, and we've got to build.
With Caitlin and her status, just how did she look? How did she feel today during shoot-around? And is she making progress and getting closer playing?
She's making progress. I think, again, top of mind, I think I told you this afternoon, is just long-term. Making sure that we don't have any setbacks. Making progress and feeling good are 2 different things. And we want to make sure that she feels good. We want to make sure that she's confident. We want to make sure that we're not putting her in a position to have any setbacks. And that's the priority right now.
And that Titan was the Las Vegas Aces. This wasn't just any opponent, it was the league's gold standard, the very definition of a super team. Coached by the brilliant Becky Hammon, the Aces were a well-oiled machine, a basketball buzzsaw that had methodically carved up the rest of the WNBA for 2 straight years on their way to back-to-back championships. They were led by the reigning MVP, Aja Wilson, a generational force of nature who seemed to be playing on an entirely different level from everyone else. Wilson was having another dominant season, a walking double-double who could single-handedly take over a game with her scoring, rebounding, and defensive prowess. The Aces had owned the Indiana Fever for half a decade, beating them in every single matchup since 2019. That 5-year losing streak wasn't just a statistic, it was a heavy psychological weight, a mental block that had haunted the franchise. The narrative was set in stone. The pundits weren't asking if the Fever would lose, but by how much. They were completely and utterly written off. The sold-out crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse brought an electric energy, a sea of fans desperate to believe, but even the most optimistic among them harbored a deep sense of dread. This felt impossible. What nobody, not even the Aces themselves, could possibly realize was that this crucible of adversity was about to forge something new, something powerful, something magical.
Interested in hearing how you feel about beating Las Vegas. You've been through a lot of them.
Yeah, I was reminding the team, I was like, it's been since 2000-something since I've been here. But, I mean, on the bright side is that, organizations go through certain things. There's lows in every part of life, and I think for us in the Fever, it was our time. And
what have you seen the last two games in particular against the Wings and the Lynx of the growth of this team without Caitlin on the floor?
I think first and foremost, defensively, we've been better. And that's continuing to build consistency in our coverages, have a high attention to detail in everything that we do. I think our activity, our awareness has been better on the defensive end as well. We've done a better job of protecting the paint. Now we've still got to improve in defending without fouling. And I think offensively, the ball's moving. Multiple players are touching it. We're getting it from side to side. Getting it inside, outside. It's moving a little bit quicker. Our goal is to get to where we play 0.5 basketball. And when we're at our best, it's moving and it's popping, and ball movement and player movement as well.
From the very first possession, you could feel it in the air. The atmosphere in Gainbridge Fieldhouse crackled with an energy that was different, defiant. This was not the hesitant, struggling team that had stumbled without its star. The Indiana Fever came out with a ferocious, suffocating intensity that seemed to catch the champions completely off guard. Their defensive pressure was immediate, relentless, and suffocating. They flew around the court with a synchronized fury, switching on every screen, closing out on every shooter, and disrupting every passing lane. Their game plan became terrifyingly clear. They were going to make Aja Wilson's night a living hell. They sent a second, and sometimes even a third defender at her every single time she touched the ball, forcing the reigning MVP into uncomfortable shots and frustrating turnovers. The Aces, a team used to fluid, beautiful offense, looked rattled and discombobulated. The Fever's energy was contagious, spreading from the players to the roaring crowd, which sensed that something truly special was happening. This defiant stand grew even more impressive as the referees seemed determined to keep Wilson in the game, blowing the whistle for a series of questionable phantom calls that drew waves of boos from the stands. But it didn't matter. Every soft foul against them only seemed to harden their resolve. They refused to let it break their spirit. This wasn't just a basketball game anymore. It was a fight, and the Fever were winning.
What are some of the keys that you see as to how exactly you're going to do that, or what you guys need to do to approach the game successfully?
Yeah, I think we've got to be disruptive. We've got to make sure that we play with a level of physicality that doesn't allow them to just pass the ball around where everywhere that they want to pass it. So we've got to make sure that we're disruptive. We got to make sure that we're elite at our on-ball screen defense. This is a team that reads really well, that moves really well. We got to be elite at the point of attack on on-ball screen defense. We've got to. We always talk about guarding our yard, being able to guard one-on-one so we're not in rotation early. I think for us, it's going to have to start on the defensive end of the floor so that allows us to get out and run in transition as well. But we can't allow them to just do exactly what they want to do on the offensive end.
Coming off a big Commissioner's Cup win Tuesday, Fever emphasized coming into this one how important it was to keep moving forward, to keep the train on going, to not have a hangover in maybe more ways than one. And they did not. It was a dominant display, bigger than I can ever remember here in recent memory with the Fever, especially when the star player was out. They never trailed. They got up as many as 27 points in this one. They kept their pedal down, which is important given what we've seen this season, en route to an 81-54 win. Complete dominance. They pummeled this Las Vegas Aces team. It was a 27-point win, and it wasn't even close after the first quarter. Once again, the Fever owned that second quarter in a big way. They outscored the Aces 25-10, which allowed them to go into halftime on top by 22.
With the team needing an offensive hero to step up, veteran guard Kelsey Mitchell answered the call and put on an absolute masterclass. Mitchell, a loyal soldier who had been with the franchise through all the lean years, played with the fire of someone who had been waiting for this exact moment her entire career. She came out scorching hot from beyond the arc, hitting one clutch three-pointer after another with defenders draped all over her. These weren't just points on a scoreboard, they were daggers that systematically crushed any flicker of momentum the Aces tried to build. Her unshakable confidence radiated through the lineup, and her teammates fed off her aggressive energy. But perhaps the most profound revelation of the night was the emergence of Aliyah Boston. For much of the season, the immensely talented center had been a focal point of fan frustration, a dominant college force who seemed underutilized in the Fever's new-look offense. But on this night, she was finally, completely, and gloriously unleashed. With the offense forced to run through the post, the ball movement was crisp and intentional, and Boston's teammates were looking for her on every possession. She dominated. She went right at Aja Wilson, scoring with a dazzling array of post moves and playing with a physical, aggressive confidence that was breathtaking to watch. She owned the glass, protected the rim, and played with the swagger of the franchise cornerstone everyone knew she could be. This was her true arrival, a coming out party on the biggest stage against the best in the world. It was a stunning 1-2 punch from Mitchell and Boston, proving to the world that the Fever's arsenal was far deeper and more dangerous than anyone had given them credit for. As the second half unfolded, the impossible began to feel inevitable. The lead just kept growing. What was a surprising 10-point advantage ballooned to 15, then swelled to an unbelievable 20. Before the Aces could even process what was happening, the margin had stretched to a jaw-dropping 27 points. This was no longer just a potential upset, it was a public humiliation, a complete and utter dismantling of a championship dynasty on national television. The Las Vegas Aces, the very symbol of WNBA excellence, didn't just look beatable, they looked thoroughly broken. Their body language screamed frustration, shoulders slumped, heads dropped, visible arguments on the court. They had no answers for the Fever's relentless defensive rotations or their newly discovered balanced offensive attack. Veteran Natasha Howard, who had earned the Commissioner's Cup MVP, was a warrior on both ends of the floor, blocking shots, grabbing key rebounds, and bringing a championship grit that elevated everyone around her. The sold-out crowd was in a state of pure euphoria, on its feet for the entire fourth quarter, roaring with a passion that had been building for years. They celebrated every defensive stop, every made basket, as the 27-point blowout became an undeniable, glorious reality. This was a moment nobody was supposed to see, a script nobody could have written, but it was happening right before their very eyes. When the final buzzer sounded and the euphoric celebration erupted on the court, Kelsey Mitchell, the hero of the night, revealed the three simple words that had perfectly encapsulated her team's incredible journey. With raw, pure emotion cracking in her voice, she looked into the camera and said, "We deserve it." Those three words carried the immense weight of years of struggle. They spoke for every loss in the 5-year drought against Vegas, for every critic who dismissed them, for every doubt that whispered they were nothing without Caitlin Clark. It was a powerful, emotional release, a validation for the players who had been there through the darkest times and had refused to give up. This wasn't just another win in the standings, it was a cathartic triumph that redefined their own perception of themselves. The emotional aftermath was incredible, as players hugged each other with tears of joy, celebrating with a fan base that had waited so long for a victory that felt this meaningful. It was definitive proof that the Indiana Fever were not the Caitlin Clark show. They were a real, legitimate team, forged in the fires of adversity. This single victory changes everything for the Indiana Fever moving forward. It was not a fluke. It was a powerful, undeniable declaration. All the doubters, all the critics who claimed this team was a one-woman spectacle were silenced in the most emphatic way possible. Players like Kelsey Mitchell and Aliyah Boston didn't just step up. They proved they are legitimate stars capable of carrying this team against the league's absolute best. The championship-level defense, the seamless communication, and the unbreakable team chemistry chemistry they displayed are the true foundations of a contender. Now take a moment and picture this new reality. Picture this battle-tested, confident group, a team that now knows deep in its bones that it can dismantle a dynasty without its best player. Now, imagine adding a healthy, rested, and motivated Caitlin Clark back into that lineup. You're no longer just adding a star player to a promising team. You are adding a generational super weapon to an already proven army. Clark is no longer returning to save a struggling franchise. She's returning to join a group of certified winners. The Indiana Fever have become something far more terrifying than just a media sensation. They are now a legitimate, dangerous, and unified threat to the entire league. The question is no longer if the Fever can compete. The real question is, who in the world can stop them now?